Here's what no one really tells you about the men who can't seem to forget you. It's not just about beauty. It's not about saying the perfect things or acting in some flawless way. The women who stay in a man's mind for a long time, the ones he thinks about even years later, do something different without even realizing it. They touch parts of his inner world that were never fully active before. It's like certain emotional switches inside him get turned on, not through tricks or manipulation, but through awareness and presence. And once that happens, his behavior starts to change in subtle but powerful ways. He checks his phone more often, hoping it's you. He mentions you in casual talks with friends. He starts adjusting his plans just in case he gets to see you. And sometimes he just sits quietly, replaying small moments with you in his head, trying to understand why you stay there so strongly. What's strange is he may not even understand it himself. He might say it doesn't make sense. You might not even match his usual type, but something deeper has already been activated, and that's what keeps pulling him back. He starts feeling like you are somewhere in the background of his mind, even when life moves on, and the more he tries to explain it logically, the less sense it makes to him. Stay with this, because it only gets deeper from here. This is where attraction stops being simple and starts becoming emotional rhythm. One key pattern that shapes this is something like presence and distance working together. Most people think being always available is the way to be loved, always replying fast, always being free, always adjusting. At first that feels good to him, easy and comfortable, but over time something shifts. If everything is always available, the mind stops chasing it. There is no space left for longing. On the other side, if someone is always distracted, even when present, he feels unseen, like he is not fully experienced in the moment. Neither extreme creates real pull. But when someone is fully there in the moment, focused, calm, and emotionally present, and then fully living their own life when away, something different happens. His mind starts noticing the gap. Not confusion, but curiosity. Not pressure, but attention. He begins to feel your absence because your presence had real weight. And in that space, his thoughts start returning to you again and again, even when nothing is happening. That is where emotional imprint begins to form, not through force, but through contrast. And slowly, without him even noticing, he starts checking for you in moments you are not even trying to be found. What you're doing, replaying conversations in your mind, thinking about what was said, and even looking forward to the next time he comes into your space again. Because here's something most women never really get told. Men don't chase what already feels fully available to them. They chase what feels meaningful, what feels like it has value. And that sense of value is not built through constant availability or always being there on demand. It's created when you have a life that already feels full. Your own interests, your own friends, your own direction, your own purpose. When you're not sitting around waiting for a message, when your time is genuinely filled with things that make you feel alive, he notices it. He may not even be able to explain it, but he feels it. And it changes how he sees you. It makes him want to step forward, to earn his place in your world, instead of assuming it's already secured. This is what people call that present and absent rhythm. You're not being cold. You're not playing games. You're just fully there when you are there and fully living your life when you are not. That natural flow creates a kind of emotional pulse in the connection, like a quiet heartbeat he can sense even when you're not around. And over time, it builds something deeper than simple attention. It builds anticipation. It builds meaning. It builds a feeling in him that being with you is different from everything else. It doesn't feel ordinary. It feels rare. And once his mind starts linking you with that rare feeling, you stop being just another person in his day and start becoming someone he thinks about without trying. That's when it shifts from interest to mental presence. Stay with this, because it goes deeper than most people realize. The next layer is something like emotional recognition, and this is where everything changes in a quiet way. It has nothing to do with doing more for him or proving your love through actions. In fact, it's almost the opposite. It's about seeing him in a way most people never do. Not just the surface version he shows to the world, but the parts underneath. The unspoken stress, the hidden pressure, the quiet moments he never explains. Most women focus on showing care through doing things, supporting him, helping him, being there for him. And while that matters, it doesn't always reach the deepest layer of his mind. What creates that deeper bond is when he feels understood without having to explain everything. when you notice what's really going on without forcing him to talk before he's ready. He spends most of his life presenting a version of himself that looks strong, controlled, and put together even when he is tired or uncertain inside, and most people only see that surface. But when you start noticing the small details, the change in tone, the shift in energy, the silence that means something more than words, and you respond with calm awareness instead of pressure, something changes in him. You don't interrogate, you don't demand explanation, you simply acknowledge what you sense in a simple way, like noticing he seems a little off, or that the day might have been heavy. No pressure, no pushing, just recognition. And that small moment lands deeper than long conversations sometimes do. Because for the first time, he doesn't feel like he has to perform his emotions correctly to be accepted. He feels seen without effort. And that feeling creates trust in a way nothing else can. It's subtle, but it's powerful. And once that trust forms, he starts relaxing around you in a completely different way, almost without realizing it. It attaches to you on a level that goes deeper than simple attraction. You stop being just someone he talks to and start becoming someone he feels he needs in his emotional world. Not in a needy or dependent way, but in a way where your presence feels unique, like something he cannot easily replace. Because most people around him might care about him in a general sense, but you become the one who actually understands him in a real way. And that difference changes everything. It shifts the connection from surface-level interest into something much deeper, something that stays in his mind even when the moment is over. The kind of feeling that doesn't fade just because time passes or excitement drops. Instead, it returns in random thoughts, in quiet moments, when he is alone and not even trying to think about you. And that is when attachment starts forming in a natural way. This is the second emotional switch, the one that turns attention into emotional bonding. The third switch is something like freedom inside commitment. And this is where many connections unintentionally break down, because men don't actually fear commitment itself. What they fear is what they believe they will lose inside it. They fear losing independence, losing space, losing the feeling of being themselves without pressure or control. When a man starts feeling like commitment means restriction, something inside him begins to pull away, even if he cares deeply. Even if the connection is real, because it starts to feel like he is giving up parts of his identity. But when this is understood differently, everything shifts. When the relationship allows space, trust, and individuality to exist at the same time, it creates a completely different experience. You are not restricting him. You are not monitoring him. You are not making him feel guilty for having his own time or his own world. Instead, you trust the connection without trying to control it. And that trust changes how he experiences you. He no longer feels trapped. He feels free while still being connected. And that combination is rare. Stay with this, because this is where most people misunderstand relationships completely. When a man feels he can breathe inside a connection, when he feels he is not losing himself, he naturally moves closer instead of pulling away. He starts choosing the relationship more willingly, not out of pressure, but out of genuine desire. And slowly he begins to associate you with freedom instead of limitation, with ease instead of pressure, and that association becomes powerful in his mind over time. Now the fourth and final switch is something deeper, something that shapes long-term emotional connection in a lasting way. It is the growth factor. Because one of the quiet fears many people carry is the fear of becoming stuck, of staying the same version of themselves for years without evolving. And the person who can gently inspire growth, without forcing it, becomes extremely important in a man's emotional world. But this is not about criticism or correction. In fact, pushing someone to change often creates resistance. It makes them feel judged or not enough. Instead, what actually creates growth is recognition, noticing the good in him and reflecting it back in a way that makes him see himself differently. Simple observations like seeing effort, noticing character, or recognizing how he handles situations. Small comments that feel real, not exaggerated. And over time, this shapes how he sees himself through your eyes. And when a man starts seeing a better version of himself reflected in you, he naturally wants to step into it. Not because he is forced, but because he is inspired. And at the same time, when he sees you also growing, also learning, also evolving in your own life, it creates a silent motivation inside him. He doesn't want to fall behind. He wants to rise with you, not as competition, but as alignment, as two people moving forward instead of standing still. And that shared direction becomes something powerful, because many people can accept him as he is, but you become the one who sees what he can become. And that vision stays with him longer than anything else. And once that happens, he doesn't just remember you, he feels shaped by you. Not just to who you are right now, but to the version of you both grow into over time. And when you step back and look at everything, it all comes down to this. These four inner patterns, the present and absent rhythm, emotional recognition, freedom inside commitment, and the growth influence. They are not tricks, they are not games. They are more like the hidden structure behind deep human connection. The difference between someone who is just briefly dated and someone who is never really forgotten. And the important part is you don't have to pretend or become someone fake to use this understanding. You just need awareness and the courage to live it in a real way. Be fully present when you are with someone and fully living your own life when you are not. See him clearly without forcing explanations or pressure. Give space inside the connection so it never feels like a cage, and keep focusing on your own growth so the energy between you stays alive. When these parts naturally come together, something shifts in how the connection feels. You stop overthinking messages. You stop replaying every small interaction in your head. You stop trying to control outcomes because you begin to understand something important. The right connection does not need to be chased or forced into place. It simply unfolds when two people meet each other in the right emotional state. You show up as someone who is fully there in the moment but not dependent on it. Someone who understands without needing constant explanation. Someone who gives space while still being connected. Someone who grows instead of staying stuck in the same emotional space. And when that kind of presence is experienced by the other person, it leaves a deep imprint, not through pressure, but through contrast, not through effort to impress, but through authenticity. And when those inner patterns are activated in a natural way, the connection stops feeling ordinary. It starts to feel different, rare, hard to replace. He doesn't just think about you in the moment, he starts remembering you when you are not even there, not because of confusion, but because of impact. And that is where emotional attachment slowly builds into something stronger over time. Stay with this, because this is the final layer most people miss. When a man experiences a connection where he feels both understood and free at the same time, something in him settles and also deepens. He doesn't feel controlled, but he also doesn't feel lost. He feels chosen, and that feeling is powerful. Because many connections fade when comfort replaces tension, but here something different happens. It continues to grow because it is built on rhythm, space, and recognition. And over time, he doesn't just see you as someone he dated, he starts to see you as someone who shaped how he feels in relationships. Someone who changed the way he understands connection itself. And that is why some people are remembered long after everything else fades, not because of perfection, but because of impact. And once you understand this, everything about connection becomes clearer. Love stops feeling random. It starts feeling like timing, awareness, and emotional alignment working together in the right way. And now you see the patterns that were always there. Not just to who you are right now, but to who you both slowly become together over time. And when you really step back and look at everything clearly, it all comes down to this. These four internal patterns, the present and absent rhythm, emotional recognition, freedom inside commitment, and the growth influence. They are not tricks, they are not manipulation, and they are not games. They are more like the hidden structure underneath deep human connection, the difference between someone who is briefly remembered and someone who is never fully forgotten. And the important part is you don't need to become fake or act like someone else to understand this. You just need awareness and the willingness to actually live it in a real grounded way. Be fully present when you are there with someone and fully living your own life when you are not. See him clearly without forcing him to explain every feeling or every silence. Give space inside the connection so it never feels tight, controlled, or heavy, and at the same time keep building your own life so your energy never becomes dependent or empty. When all of this naturally aligns, something inside the connection begins to shift. You stop overthinking every message. You stop replaying every small interaction like it defines everything. You stop trying to control outcomes because you start understanding a deeper truth. The right connection doesn't need to be forced, chased, or constantly analyzed. It unfolds when two people meet in the right emotional state and timing. You show up as someone who is fully present but not emotionally dependent. Someone who understands without needing constant explanations. Someone who gives space without disconnecting. Someone who grows instead of staying stuck in the same emotional loop. And when a man experiences that kind of presence, it leaves a deep imprint inside him, not through pressure, but through contrast, not through effort to impress, but through authenticity and consistency. And slowly, over time, he doesn't just think of you in the moment, he starts remembering you when you are not even there. Not because of confusion, but because of impact. And that is where emotional attachment starts building in a quiet, natural way. Stay with this, because this is where most people miss the final layer. When a man feels both understood and free at the same time, something inside him settles and expands at the same time. He doesn't feel controlled, but he also doesn't feel lost. He feels chosen in a way that feels calm and real. And that feeling is powerful, because many connections fade when routine replaces emotion. But here it keeps deepening, because it is built on rhythm, space, and understanding. And over time, he doesn't just see you as someone he once connected with. He starts to see you as someone who shaped the way he experiences relationships entirely. Someone who changed how he understands emotional closeness itself. And that is why certain people never fully leave someone's mind. Not because of perfection, but because of the emotional imprint they leave behind. And once you see this clearly, everything about connection starts to make more sense. Love stops feeling random or confusing. It starts feeling like timing, awareness, and emotional alignment working together in a quiet, powerful way. And now you can see the patterns that were always there, just never fully noticed. And when you understand those patterns deeply, you start to see why some connections feel light at first but fade quickly, while others feel simple in the beginning but grow stronger in memory over time. It's not about intensity alone. It's about how the experience is structured inside his mind and emotions. Because every interaction leaves a trace, even the small ones, even the ones that felt ordinary in the moment. And over time, those traces start to build a bigger emotional picture that he carries with him, not consciously at first, but quietly in the background of his thoughts. And that's where repetition of feeling matters more than single dramatic moments. The way he felt around you, the way he experienced your presence, the way he felt understood or free or seen, all of that becomes part of how his mind categorizes you later. And here's something most people never think about. It's not just what you say or do in the moment, it's the emotional environment you create around you. Some people create pressure without realizing it. Some create comfort. Some create curiosity. And some create a mix of space and connection that stays in someone's memory longer than expected. And when that balance exists, it doesn't feel overwhelming in the moment, but it becomes unforgettable later when distance kicks in. Because distance doesn't erase emotion, it reveals it. What felt normal suddenly feels meaningful in hindsight. What felt simple suddenly feels rare when it's no longer there. And this is why timing and emotional space matter more than constant effort, because constant presence without emotional depth becomes background noise. But presence that feels real, focused, and emotionally aware becomes something the mind returns to. And absence that is not forced but natural creates room for reflection. And in that reflection, feelings start to grow in a different way. Not because something is being done to force it, but because the mind is filling in the space with meaning. So when all of this comes together, the connection doesn't stay flat. It develops layers. First attention, then memory, then emotional weight, then reflection, then attachment. And each layer builds on the one before it. And once emotional weight enters the picture, even silence becomes part of the connection. Even distance becomes part of the story. And that's why some people stay in someone's mind far longer than expected, not because they tried harder, but because the experience itself had depth and contrast built into it. And when you see it from this level, you stop chasing reactions and start understanding patterns. You stop measuring connection by immediate response and start noticing long-term emotional impact. Because the real story of attraction is never just in the moment, it's in what the moment leaves behind.